Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Design Under Influence, where we look deeply under the hood of what makes architecture, design, engineering firms work and be happy, get good projects. And then we find what that is and we sort of unpack it. We'll look at it, examine it together, and hopefully give you valuable, useful advice. And today we are touching on switching to Revit from AutoCAD or 2D drafting. To help me look into this particular subject and get some clarity or some ideas is my co-host, Boris Rappaport with ArcIT. Boris.
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday.
And we also have Michael Bass joining us for this podcast today. He is an expert when it comes to software tools for architecture, design, engineering firms. And he's going to help us look into Revit and talk about some of the things that it does that other tools do not do. Michael, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys again. And actually, I've got a great story to start this off with. It's kind of funny. It's my wife and I have been talking about designing our kitchen and doing some renovations in the house. And I have a background in designing and, drafting and modeling, but we decided to just find someone that could help us that was really a specialist. Found a great person. And, her background is in kitchen design specifically. And she'd been doing it for, since the late 90s. So she's really got a great depth of experience. And what we did is we had her come by. She did a quick survey. We talked about some things that we were thinking about, and we let her do her thing. And we came back 2 weeks later, which was just the other day. And she had drawn up some plans for us, and they were great. I mean, really cool ideas. Amazing what she did with just a small kitchen, and we really liked them. And as we were wrapping up, we kind of talked about what are the next steps? What should we do next? How do we move forward with details, materials, and finishes? And she said, well, what we could do is you could pay us to start drawing the elevations, or you could do them, since she knew that I was capable of that. And that's when I sort of had a light bulb moment and thought, well, wow, that's interesting because she had done these in AutoCAD in a 2D world, the plans were really great, but we really weren't able to see things in 3 dimensions. So for my wife, who doesn't have a background and hasn't really looked at a lot of drawings, it was a little more challenging for her. She had to think about it. We have these drawings now, and she's able to look at them. But if that had been done in Revit, the plan would have subsequently created the elevations for us and also some 3D views so we could have seen it. And that's just a very simple story, but the idea is that now, you have to pay that, or you have to spend that additional time to create the elevations. You're adding more production work into your workflow, especially early in the design phase. That could be a lot of money that you just don't see, that you can't recoup.
That's a perfect story, Michael. So what you're saying is, had that firm or person use Revit, you would already have those 3D designs that your wife and you can look at. And I can relate to that. I'm a visual person. Plans is great. I can sort of understand them. It's a map, it's a roadmap, right, on where things are going to go. But visualizing this versus that is almost impossible with those, at least for normal people who are not trained. I'm not saying normal, not normal, but not trained eye. It's difficult to see. So let's unpack some of the other advantages, guys, of Revit. What else is there besides giving this 3D or elevation drawings right off the bat?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the things that we really should talk about are not just the still renderings, but also just the ability for the designer to create iterative views, like 3D views, perspectives, isometric views, sectional views that are 3-dimensional. So if you wanted to cut through a plane and see what a wall would look like, that's a huge capability that you don't have in AutoCAD or 2D. There are also there's the ability to add in and develop really photorealistic renderings and video walkthroughs, but actually Revit does have those tools built in. They're somewhat basic, but it does a pretty good job, especially when you're working early and, midway through the design.
What about finishes? Does Revit help with that too?
Yeah, so I think that's actually one of the things that makes it a lot easier to work in Revit is that you are, as a designer, you're getting feedback about how things look. So in addition to seeing it in 3D, you're also, you're linking all the information automatically that's being drawn or modeled is being linked to a schedule and a bill of materials. So if I want to do a quick takeoff, like for our kitchen design, for example, well, now I'm going to have to go back through and sort of manually tally up all the different appliances, the countertop square footage. In Revit, because you're using those objects, it's already doing that for you. Now there are caveats. It's not all perfect. It's not like you just drop things in and everything works as expected. We'll talk more about what to expect in terms of developing a library. But that's the basic pictures. You have a lot of these tools already pre-built into Revit.
Cool. Now, Michael, as far as we know, also there's a lot of advantages to using Revit when you're collaborating with other engineers on a project and other collaborators, specifically around, I think, clash detection is one of the big issues in the industry. Does Revit make it easier there as well?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does. It does have a clash detection tool built in. It's fairly simple. It basically just finds things that are physically touching. But there are tools like Navisworks, which add a lot more capacity, really like pro level commercial, like large scale project tools that you can use on any scale project. And they're really advanced because they can let you dial in exactly what you're trying to clash, or what type of clash detection you want to do, and what types of tolerances you're interested in keeping.
Now, is that an application?
Yeah, it is an application, and it works well with Revit because it's an Autodesk product. So it basically installs a kind of plugin, and you can switch back and forth between the two applications.
Now, in the pre-show, sorry, Boris, I'm just curious about this because I'm sitting here, and those who are watching video, we have an Eichler home, and we have like a roof is cut or open. There's some people have no roof at all, and it's just open to air. We have windows. Would you be able to see how light interacts with structure with Revit, and you can't do it in AutoCAD?
Well, yeah. So the short answer is yes. You would be able to do that in Revit. Had you modeled the structure and the frame, then you can just like really take a look at that from a lot of different angles. You could do a daylighting study, which it does have tools built in for solar radiation studies, and I think that's pretty impressive. Now you could do. I mean, there are ways that you can do that in let's say AutoCAD. You could create the 3D geometry, but the tools aren't really built in and purpose built for that.
So Revit also has that capability, which I think is kind of interesting, not only for commercial, not only for residential, but for commercial projects as well, especially with green, trying to save energy, and how light interacts and enters into the structure. And
absolutely,
yeah. And just to add to that, for commercial, right, there's also tools in Revit that's already built in, I think starting last version 2021, where you can do studies of how people interact with the buildings and motion studies, right, how people flow through the buildings and things like that. I think they've introduced that feature, which has been really popular with some of the projects that our clients are dealing with. So yeah, additional tool there as well. Now, let me, you mentioned that you can do some of these things with AutoCAD, and obviously it's going to take a little, or maybe a lot more time to do, right? But it's still doable. So I want to kind of follow up and see, many of our clients are still sticking with AutoCAD and not switching to Revit. Like, what are some hesitations there? Can you explain to us, like, what is the mindset of staying with AutoCAD?
Yeah. Well, I think that Revit isn't for every company, right? And we just want to acknowledge that. I think there are things like in Revit, for example, content creation is a big deal. You've got to have the right content. You have have a library. So for clients who've already developed an extensive 2D library, they do a lot of the same types of projects, and they're just reusing the same blocks over and over again. Then they are going to spend a lot. There is going to be investment of time up front for developing that in Revit. There's also the training. I mean, it is quite different working in Revit versus AutoCAD. And I think, people are more familiar with 3D now because there are lots of tools like SketchUp and Rhino, but just the way that you approach the design is definitely different. And that takes some time. And then the other thing is just the clarity of the drawings. This is something for maybe someone who's just, either started by hand drafting and has used AutoCAD for a long time. It's very easy to make intentional line work, and you're drawing each line, whereas in Revit everything is kind of being populated for you. So again, that's just taking the time to customize it to make it look the way that you want it to. That can take some more time in Revit for sure.
Excellent. Well, I think this was pretty good. Now, just to be clear, we're not selling Revit and or AutoCAD. We support either or both, I should say. We're ArcIT. We help architecture, engineering, and design firms with all of their IT solutions. So we can be your full managed IT provider, and we help with onboarding new architecture specific tools, help you figure out how to use them best, discuss a fit and so on and so forth. But we also can run specific projects and or manage your full IT. So you can check us out at getarchit.com. We'd love a chance to work with you. Michael, Boris, thank you kindly for your time. Again, if you guys have any questions or want to talk to either one of us, specifically Boris or Michael, hit us getarchit.com, and we'll make sure to get back to you.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Thanks,
Alex.
everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.